I'm going to try not to shout. If you want to hear my words, move in so that you can hear what I've got to say. Open Doors, which is a charity helping persecuted Christians, released this report this week. Christians in Syria are reeling after a suicide bomb attack upon a church in Damascus, which killed at least 23 people and injured 62, with 12 in critical condition. Hundreds of believers have gathered on Sunday the 22nd of June for an evening service at the Greek Orthodox Church of St. Elias in Dwellia, on the outskirts of the capital, when a man opened fire before detonating himself with a suicide vest. I was preaching when the shooting began, recalled Father Basilios, priest of St. Joseph Church, which is close to St. Elias Church. Then came the screams. Everyone instinctively dropped to the ground. The fear, it was unspeakable. We were all in shock, paralyzed with horror. The moment that truly rendered me helpless, listen to the next bit, was when a child, one of those who've lost their family, rushed to me saying, "Hide me, Father, I don't want to die." This is the plight of Christians in Giuliani's Islamist government. Giuliani's Islamist government has allowed and facilitated the persecution of its Christian minority. Giuliani's Islamist government has been funded by your Foreign Office, with David Lammy sending more than 70 million of your tax-paying pounds to this government. The Christians of the Middle East, no matter which country you look at, are a persecuted minority. In Egypt, they suffer anti-Christian pogroms. In Iraq, they suffered an attempt by ISIS for their complete annihilation. In Jordan, Christians do not have equal rights with Arab Muslims. In Qatar, that our government does much business with, Christians do not have equal rights with Arab Muslims. And I could go on to list every Muslim country in the Islamic world, and in every single one I could point out acts of discrimination, including in Pakistan, where most Muslims of this country originate from, where they also suffer anti-Christian pogroms, attacks upon churches, and discriminatory practices like being refused to drink out of the same cup as Muslims. Our government deliberately turns a blind eye to the persecution of Christians across the Muslim world. And why? It does so because to stand up for them would not fit the narrative at home. If the government were to take a stance in support of persecuted Christians abroad, it might start to ask questions here in the UK about whether the values and the teachings of Islam are compatible with British society. And so the British establishment look the other way. The progressive hypocrites look the other way. But as Christians, and put your hand up if you're a Christian, as Christians, can we look the other way? No. We are duty bound by the teachings of the apostolic faith to stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters around the world against all of their enemies. Whether their enemies are Islamists across the Muslim world, Hindutva in India, the Burmese government in Burma, or communists in North Korea and China. Whether it is drug cartels in Nicaragua or Colombia, as Christians, our first duty is to stand up for our brothers and sisters, even if such solidarity is damaging to our home nation. We must not be silent like the liberal progressive world is silent. We must force this question into the centre of British politics. It's quite possible. How else do you think that Israel's conflict with Palestine has entered into the centre of British politics? Because it was forced into the middle of British politics. If Muslims can do it for Palestinians and Hamas terrorists, then Christians can do it for the persecuted church.
Perfect.
The failing is on all of you as Christians for your lack of imagination, for your lack of courage, for your lack of conviction, for your lack of determination, for your lack of organisation, for your lack of willing to unite with your brothers and sisters just because they don't say the same doctrinal, dogmatic statements as you do. You are the ones that have failed the persecuted church. Find your voice, find your conviction, find your courage, find your solidarity, use your imagination, organise, train, mobilise and resist.
Panic.
Christians can do more. Christians should do more. Christians should pressure every sympathetic government that can to send military aid to Christians in the Middle East so that they can have a country of their own. That we can establish in the 1040 window Christian safe havens where Christians will not be persecuted. Christians can and should work within the law to establish legal mercenary entities whose job it is to defend persecuted Christians. Christians can and should be regularly protesting on the streets for the persecuted church. I want to tell every Christian, your prayers are not sufficient. I want to tell every Christian, your donations to the persecuted church through good Christian charities like Open Doors, Barnabas Fund, Christian Solidarity Worldwide, Voice of the Martyrs, are not sufficient. These Christian organisations are not brave enough, are not imaginative enough to try and actually deal with the problem of the persecuted church. Our cowardly church leaders must be dragged, kicking and screaming and protesting against the laity as we stand for our persecuted brothers and sisters. Do not be shy that people will abuse you and call you names. Christians are dying for your silence. Don't be afraid to go to prison. Christians are dying for your silence. Work within the law to change the law. Work within the law to help our brothers and sisters who are being butchered across the world. And do not be browbeat by progressive hypocrites who accuse you of Islamophobia because you stand up against persecution of Christians in the Muslim world. Why is it they don't call you a comophobe if you stand up against persecution of Christians in the communist world? Why don't they call you a Hinduphobe if you stand up against persecution of Christians in India? Why would they not accuse you of anti-Semitism if you stand up against persecution of Christians in Israel? The reality is, we Christians have been kowtowed into being too sheepish. We go along with the liberal narrative rather than thinking for ourselves. Thinking for ourselves as a Christian people, as the people of the covenant of God that binds us together across all ethnicities, all borders, and all other ideological concerns. It is on us to stand up for the persecuted church, because no one else will ever help persecuted Christians apart from the church itself. Any questions on that topic, ladies and gentlemen?